And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ambassadorial Wing. And I am your host, the Ambassador. And this evening, we are going to be continuing our discussion of the Dune saga. Oh, hold on. There we go. And we're going to be continuing our discussion of the Dune saga by the great one himself, Frank Herbert. And with this evening with me, I've got Orange Hat Reviews, Stone Loki, a Dega Outlaw, or just a Dega, whichever you prefer, and Classic Comics is with us once again. And to everybody that's trying to come into the chat, Grade Troll, welcome this evening. Kathia Star, welcome, my dear. Good to see you, ma'am. My moderator, Shea Stormdragon, mother of moderators. And we are going to, like I said, we're going to be continuing our discussion of the Dune saga, and we'll start with some introductions, and then we will just jump right in. And gentlemen, have at it.
Who wants to go first?
You're first. You spoke first. We'll go by what we see on the screen.
All right. Well, I'm Orange Hat Reviews. I do movie reviews, entertainment review, entertainment news, movie news, behind-the-scenes controversial stuff. I give it to you straight. I give it to you honest. And I give every movie a fair shake. And I sometimes take requests. So, yeah, I'm a fun little channel that just likes doing love movies.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh crap, my next? Shit. Oh, hey everybody, I am Stone Loki. I do Loki's Mornings of Mischief every day, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. I talk a lot of crap about things I do not like. I rant, I rave, as my good friend Doc down there at Adiga Outlaw, the Doc of YouTube, likes to say. When I turn red, my eyes start glowing, and everything within 4 feet just catches to flame. So check out my channel. If you like my stuff, great. If you don't, well, thank you anyway for checking it out. And on to Mr. Adiga Outlaw.
All right. I am outclassed. Everyone here knows how to speak their mind about things. All I do is write a little bit. Retired Doc, he's right. I retired from chiropractic because of health reasons. Now I write because of insane reasons. And everyone that I see on here, I love all your stuff. I have all your channels, watch it all. And you will see me whenever I can with Ambassador, always checking out Orange Hat and Classic, and every morning with Stone Loki, whether he likes it or not.
All right, everyone. So I'm Classic Comics. Obviously, my channel, I cover comics. Also cover genre movies and TV shows. Actually just put my review for the second episode of Picard up just a little while ago, if you want to check that out. And thanks for having me.
And gentlemen, cheers. Glad to have you all here tonight.
Ambassador, is that a Coca-Cola cup? We have the same cup, brother. I got Mr. Pibb chilling in my Coca-Cola cup. I was drinking tea all day, but I got Mr. Pibb and drinking out of the same cup, brother.
Don't mess with the aqua.
Well, it's Friday. It's been it's been a very long week, and I will say this is Coke Plus.
Coke Plus.
That's all I will say. All right, and we've got Jason Presson, retired dungeon master. Greetings, my good man. Glad to have you here. And as I said in the intro, we are going to be continuing our discussion of the Dune saga and everything. We'll be talking about the movies. Particular tonight, we're going to talk about the TV movie that was done by Sci-Fi. We might mix in a little bit of the books and everything as much as I can recall, and who all else can recall and everything who have read the books. And we're gonna kick it old school.
Dun 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 dun. Oh shit, that's the movie. Sorry.
No, that's all good. I think they actually Berserker 99. Welcome. Thank you for being here, man. Berserker 99 and everything. Good egg and everything. My mods, if you can, make sure you link his channel because he does good stuff too. But I think we'll kick off and everything. We'll talk about the sci-fi miniseries. We can either do Dune or Children of Dune, whichever floats your boat. Or we can just bounce back and forth.
Might as well just start with Dune sci-fi.
Okay, because we honestly covered the movie pretty well and everything last week, so we'll do the sci-fi stuff tonight. Like I said, if I need to plug in some stuff from the books or anything, I can. Well, anyhow. Well, the first time I heard about the Dune movie was actually I saw it on VHS at a Best Buy in my hometown. I'm like, they did another Dune, and my mom's like, we should get that. And I'm like, yeah, we should. And it was actually, I think it was a twin pack VHS set and everything because VHS was still big back when that came out. And we watched it and we're like, well, this is a definite improvement. I mean, yeah, it had low production value because it was a Sci-Fi Channel miniseries, but at the same time, it stuck more accurately to the books as far as I understood the books and everything. So
they had a grade A costume designer, Ambassador. A grade A costume designer.
Oscar-winning costume designer.
Uh-oh. I take it.
Strike you.
I take it. Your thoughts?
I've seen better costumes at Halloween on 4-year-olds.
You're not right. I will say the costumes were kind of over the top. I'm kind of glad that they brought them down a little bit. Okay, let's be honest, a lot for the TV movie of Children of Dune. So, but I will say that I liked the acting. I thought the acting was actually pretty good. I thought they had a decent cast, although they had the human robot William Hurt himself as Duke Leto Atreides. I'm sorry, I preferred Jurgen Prochnow as Duke Leto in the original movie, but William Hurt, he did okay. Yeah. But I did like the guy that they had playing. For heaven's sakes, Paul Alec Newman. I thought Alec Newman did a good job.
That's where I have to disagree. He was too old, way too old.
I agree. Now, I do agree with you on the age part, but as far as portraying the role, I think he did a good job. That's for me. I can overlook differentiation in age if they portrayed the part well, and I will say Alec Newman, he did a decent job. Oh, Speaker, you're all good, man. Peace, man. I actually sent Speaker a link and everything if you wanted to join. I will say I think Alan Newman, despite his age, he portrayed the role of Paul Atreides. He did a good job. I think he did better than Kyle MacLachlan because Kyle MacLachlan was a little wooden. But I think the woman that they got to play Jessica, the woman they had playing Chani or Chaney, whichever way you prefer to pronounce it, I think they did I think they both did good jobs. But gentlemen, your thoughts?
Well, those costumes, man. Oh, go ahead, Orange Hat. I already said that. I'll get to.
There was I was going to comment on the costume things. I mean, I thought the costumes were good. I didn't read the books, so the miniseries in 2000 and 2003 were basically my introduction to Dune. One of the coolest things that sold me on liking Dune was the special effects. And when I saw that sandworm, man, it's like, whoo, okay, we got some big stuff here. I like big stuff, so yeah. But the story was also compelling. I mean, I wish I had the freaking mini. I'm going to have to look on Amazon Prime for that stuff, man. Because I really want to watch it again. But yeah.
Hey, if you want a nice little treat, there is a metal bookcase edition. You can only get it in DVD, and it's got the unedited version of the original movie along with the theatrical version. It's not on Blu-ray. No matter what anybody says, you can't get it on Blu-ray. It's only on the metal case DVD edition.
Yeah, probably
Nice.
cost you an arm and a leg.
And you can't get it. You can't stream it either. You can't stream it.
Well, something that old and everything, something that obscure, I don't think they realized that there would be much of a demand for the original movie because it's been such a long time since anybody watched it.
But yeah, as for the wardrobe and whatnot, one of the things that stuck out to me was when I think it was Paul's sister was doing a training montage where she was dodging floating blades, then she just drops all freaking clothes. It's like,
yeah, that's actually in Children of Dune. I know which part you're talking about. I'll say a lot of the I don't know.
Yeah. But you could also tell that was kind of just her character was. I believe at that point her character was kind of already on the slide downhill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was starting to get. Unfortunately, unlike her older brother, relatively speaking, Alia didn't have the maturity and she didn't have the fortitude to withstand all of the genetic memory that was inside her, especially one Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. Dang, that name just sends shudders down your spine. It's like Mufasa. Vladimir Harkonnen.
I always felt bad for Alia. She really got a raw deal.
She did go nuts.
Well, but here's the thing, and I think this part of the problem, she was what they call preborn.
Yeah.
And just like, Paul wasn't because he took the spice and everything, but Jessica was pregnant with Alia when she took the water of life in Dune, and she was what they called preborn. I will say comparing Alia from the original from the original movie to the TV movie, I like the TV movie version because we get to see her go down that road, and you do feel bad for her and everything because she's under a tremendous amount of strain because her brother has pretty much given up any type of governance and everything of the empire,
right?
And she's trying to hold things together, and she's trying to hold her own mental state together. And when you've got the genetic memory of Vladimir Harkonnen floating around in your head, and that's a very powerful, potent genetic memory to have floating around your head. It can tend to drive you nuts.
Yeah, it's like that's no chance.
Wasn't that her grandfather, if I remember correctly?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because Harkonnen is actually Jessica's father.
Mm. But
She's
yeah.
Paul and Jessica are actually half Harkonnen.
It's bullshit. They never explain that in the movies.
Another thing too, with the genetic children, like she was, normally if they weren't pre-born and they didn't have the water of life given to them when they're that early, they have a chance to have a childhood and develop their own personality, where this kid didn't, and she was bombarded by generations of personalities, so she was nuts to begin with.
Now, it was the water of life that made everybody's eyes glow blue, if I remember correctly, yes?
No,
it's just actually the spice.
Yeah, that's the spice. Because remember, all the Fremen had blue eyes because they had grown up on Arrakis. They were born on Arrakis. They ate the food, and the spice was everywhere. And that's what causes your eyes to go blue because of spice saturation in the blood. But Deggy, you might know this a little bit better than me. The reason why people who take the spice, who live off world, the reason that they don't go blue is because they aren't constantly bombarded, or their blood isn't saturated with the spice. Is that right?
It's a buildup. Yeah, Classic knows this probably even better than I do.
Okay.
But it is a buildup. But once you get exposed, the addiction starts. And I I don't remember how long it takes for those eyes to change, but I think it's within a couple of years. You know, little children are born without having the blue within blue, but I think somewhere around 4 years old it starts switching on them. So Paul, when he got there, it took him 2 years, but
That sounds about right.
I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, and after a while, his eyes went black for I can't remember the reason.
The reason his eyes went black, I think, is because he finally is able to tap into his full abilities, and he starts tapping into he starts tapping into his full
Prevision
abilities.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, the prevision, I think.
Makes you wonder why the Spacing Guild doesn't have the same thing, because they are literally bombarded by spice. I mean, they are like genetically mutated because of that so much spice is thrown at them, and they don't have the blue and blue.
Right.
Well, they may
like,
at some.
It seems
Go
like
ahead, classic.
It seems like it affects people differently depending on how you take it into your body. You know, if you breathe it in as a gas, like which is what the Spacing Guild does, it seems to have a different effect than if you you eat it, and digest it.
Yeah, because with the Spacing Guild, what they're trying to do is they're trying to create navigators. They're trying to, and here's the other thing. Oftentimes, a lot of your Spacing Guild navigators were once mentats, and they have the higher capacity of their mind and everything, and they're able to manipulate the spice in certain ways that normal, like the Fremen, wouldn't be able to. Because the thing you have to remember about Paul is he's trained both as a mentat and as a Bene Gesserit.
Right.
And when you put on top of the fact that he is he finally gets exposed to the spice when they arrive on Arrakis, the fact that he has all that training and everything, the Parabendu, he has the mental discipline of a mentat. That spice amplifies all his abilities to the nth degree, in a manner of speaking. And I think that's an immense amount of an incredible amount of pressure that Paul is put under, and everything particularly in the first book, in the first movie. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember if it was the Dune 2000 movie, but I do remember a kid that she was very essential in the plot. She started getting blue eyes too, and it's like I can't remember which character that was.
Ghanima.
But all I remember is that she creeped me out.
Aaliyah, was she wearing black the whole time? Little teeny kid?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
she
that
had
was
dark
his
hair
sister.
as well.
That was the sister Alia.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
She got poisoned in the womb by the water of life. And so she was always screwed up. Cool character, but screwed up.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, wow, dude, she is just full on nuts. Speaking of the the whole spice thing, when when I was watching the show, this memory just hit back when we started talking about the whole spice thing. It's like, is this show connected to Star Wars? Because I remember spice being talked about in Star Wars when I was a kid. I said that.
Right.
Like, no, this was before Star Wars. I'm like,
oh, okay. Star Wars
from them.
Lucas obviously borrowed several things from Dune for Star Wars.
Yeah, because Dune very much predates anything Lucas did, because Frank Herbert started writing the books in, I think, like the
60s.
Early
60s. Was it 60s? Yeah, that sounds
First,
about right. Because
Dune Messiah was
about 5 years writing.
Children was 76.
Yeah, Dune. I think Herbert died before he finished Chapter House. Am I right?
I think he finished Chapter House and he died after.
Okay. Yeah. I will say this: Herbert has him and his son. I know some shade gets thrown at Brian Herbert for what he's done, but I think honestly he has tried to carry on his father's legacy, and I commend him for it. It's kind of like with what Christopher Tolkien has done had done for his father's work. He tried to build upon and flesh out a lot of the stuff that his father didn't have an opportunity to do. Because let's
For the most part, he did a wonderful job too.
he did, and I think honestly, I think Brian Herbert. Like I said, I know a lot of shade gets thrown his way, but I think the fact that he went back and he did the prehistory and he did the aftermath of the Dune universe and everything, particularly the events after Chapter House and before the original novel. I think he gives a richness to the whole universe. And the one thing I honestly hope, even if they just only do the original Herbert books, I would love to see this entire saga brought to film. And I think Villeneuve can actually do it with some competence, as long as I'm honestly gonna pre-order tickets because I want to see this sucker.
Mm-hmm.
But getting back on topic, the other thing that I found interesting about the miniseries, both versions of them, both of the Dune and Children of Dune, it really gives you a fairly good picture of what it means to govern an entire empire. And here's the thing: Paul was not terribly interested at first in learning how to govern his house in particular, but his father tried to have him involved on so many different levels. And Paul I think he was kind of lackadaisical, and I think it's partially due to his age. But I think also I think one of the issues is not only was Paul under the pressure of eventually discovering that he is the fulfillment of some prophecy from the Fremen, but on top of that, he's trying to avenge his father's death and the partial destruction of his house. But now also, he is going to, as the final part of his revenge of the House of Atreides' revenge on the Empire, become Emperor of the known universe. And that has got to be an immense amount of pressure. Y'all's thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I definitely think so, because I mean, if you're a widespread emperor, if you're like surveying, well, in this case, the universe, there are things that you got to pay attention to. You aren't going to have much of a personal life. I mean, let's face it. Basically, people are going to be wanting your attention here and there, and having to maintain that. It's like, no wonder he walked away from it, I believe, didn't he?
Yeah, he did walk away from it.
He just basically just said, "Screw it," I don't want it, or I never wanted it. And Aaliyah, she did her damnedest, but she went nuts because of it. Not to mention her grandfather in her head too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, who could actually do there? I mean, who could actually maintain order throughout a whole universe? And it's like, you're not going to be able to do that. You're asking way too much of one person to do that. I mean, I would have had an oligarchy if it came to a whole universe, man.
Well, in a manner of speaking, there was an oligarchy, and because you had all the other houses of the Landsrat.
Yeah.
But you think about it, this was very much a feudal system, and they completely reorganized the empire into something different. I mean, I don't think Classic or Adegi, you might know this better than me, did they do away with the houses of the Landsrat, or did they keep them after Paul took control?
I'm trying to remember. I think they were eliminated, but it wasn't necessarily all Paul's doing, because later on there was another sisterhood that came in that made war with the Bene Gesserits, and it just went back and forth to where they basically, from what I understand, they kind of faded. But the war that came about with the Fremen,
Mm-hmm.
had killed so many and given so much power to Paul. I think it just came down to the schools, not necessarily the um, great houses. The Bene Gesserits, the Mentats, those, I think they remained for a while before they were supplanted by. I mean, this is centuries later in the Dune universe.
Yeah, because
And then eventually there was the God Emperor who eliminated everything except for, like I said, the two sisterhoods.
Yeah, because I think Layla II, he kept the Mentats and he kept the Bene Gesserits around, but everything else got he knocked the pins out from underneath them and pretty much eliminated them. And
it wasn't long. I think it was within 2 centuries where they no longer needed the spacing guild either. They figured out how to do it without using spacers.
yeah, I think it was the no engine. I think was what Leto II had had allowed to be engineered and everything, and they created the no engine and no ships and everything that could travel and couldn't be tracked, and they actually used that technology to create spaces where Leto II's vision could not see them, and that was honestly his intent. Because if you think about it, Layla II and everything, particularly in the second movie, he's talking about the golden path. I know we're kind of jumping ahead here, but something that Leto very much was trying to do was trying to break humanity out of the system they had existed under for so long, and he put so many restrictions and so much to the point where people were starting to almost openly rebel. But that's what he wanted. And if I'm misrepresenting that classic Ordega, please correct me, because that's honestly a very interesting concept, this whole idea of deconstructing society. Because we're talking about society in the future. We don't realize it or anything until much later, or at least towards the beginning, because this isn't an alternate universe or anything per se. This is a far into the future human society that we're talking about, because they do refer in the books and everything to old Earth, and we don't get a whole lot about it, but we get the impression that either old Earth was either destroyed or it's kind of off limits and nobody goes there anymore. So,
you were talking about how do you control a galaxy like that, and this is something that they have to fix in this new movie, because in the sci-fi series, in the miniseries, you get the Sardaukar with berets. They're like, oh, hello, I'm a Sardaukar. It's so nice to meet you, yeah. You look at my beret. Sailor, you can park your ship in my port, yeah. And then in the movie, you've got, like, former S&M dungeon guys, and if you had a group of them, all you got to do is and they'd fit right in. I mean, no matter what it was, the movie, the miniseries, they completely ruined it. You hear about the Sardaukar and you're expecting like the Doomslayer from Dune, from Doom. That's what you expect. And then you get, look at my beret. And it's just so disappointing. These are supposed to be like the Emperor's crack killer squad of badasses. And no matter what you got in either movie, they're like, okay, you guys lost to this. They're wearing spray painted hazmat suits in the movie. They look like they're straight out of an S&M dungeon. I mean, honestly, they even got the little green light inside the helmet, and then they, in the sci-fi series, they just look, disappointing.
I'll be interested to see what Denis Villeneuve does with the design of the Sardaukar for his version, because one thing that I have heard is that this is going to one word that has been used to describe this iteration or this interpretation of Dune is going to be much more brutal, which I think is interesting because
They were supposed to be brutal. I mean, I don't know where I picked it up at because it wasn't. I think it was one of my friends years ago was talking about some of the other books, but these Sardaukar or history or something he picked up from interviews, they would even have like hidden devices with under their skin where they could pull out and kill people with. They were just nuts at how much they could fight, kill, and yeah, that same laughing face I make every morning when I'm listening to Loki rant. But they weren't a bunch of soy boys with muscles, They were like we discussed last time. They were literally developed on a planet that had turned into a hell.
Yeah,
And
it was Lucis Secundus, which we actually get a look at in Children of Dune, which Seleucus Secundus was, and I think I brought this up on the last stream, but it kind of fits in here. Seleucus Secundus was actually at one of the major battlegrounds for the war against the machines. Yes, I know the war against machines. Who'd have thunk it? But Seleucus Secundus had been a major battleground, and what ended up happening is that once the radiation, because they used atomics on the machines on that world, it got decimated very badly, and they ended up using that as a training ground for the Sardaukar. So it'll be interesting to see what these new Sardaukar look like, what they're.
Why did you say
they
you couldn't be in here, speaker? Because I know you would have a lot to offer. I mean, you are fresh off the book.
He's driving at the moment.
Oh.
So, yeah, not the best thing to be streaming and driving. So, not to mention his signal might not be that good, so I understand. Well, and Jason Preston and everything, he brings up a point about the new movie. This film is going to benefit from three things: a big budget, advancing graphics, and a director with a vision. I'm looking forward to its rebirth. As am I, sir. As am I.
As long as they get the Sardaukar right.
If they get,
they'll have red berets.
Oh yeah, red berets.
Dega, you're killing me, man. You're killing me.
I'll have red berets this time. That'll fix everything.
I will say this. I honestly appreciate both interpretations of the Emperor from the '84 movie and the sci-fi miniseries and everything, because they both bring something very interesting. Because you have, I think the actor's name was Miguel Ferrer from the original movie. And there isn't Giancarlo Esposito, or no, not Gian. I know his first name is Giancarlo, but for crying out loud, he played Felix Leiter in the Daniel Craig James Bond movies.
He's an Italian actor. I forget his name.
He is, and I think he honestly did. I think he did a good job as Shaddam. I think he did a very good job as Shaddam. Truth be told,
I think it's Giancarlo Mastroantonio or something.
Yep, Giancarlo Giannini. Shaddam the Fourth, Giancarlo Giannini.
Yeah.
Giancarlo. Yeah.
I think it's funny that they put Lynch cast Miguel Ferrer in Dune, because Dune is basically a sci-fi version of Lawrence of Arabia when you get right down to it. And
yeah.
He's not too far off. He's not too far off.
That is an interesting.
He spent years in the Middle East doing research before he started writing the book. Like, water on Dune is equivalent to oil in our world. It's not the spice. He even said it himself. It's water. That's why it was so rare on the planet. The governmental structure, the jihad, all of it was. He's right. It's Lawrence of Arabia in the desert.
And Miguel Ferrer was actually in the film Lawrence of Arabia. I don't know if that was a deliberate casting.
That might have been.
Are they bringing back McAvoy to play a part in the new Dune?
Not that I know of.
Not that I'm aware of. They pretty much got the cast set, and I think they've actually finished shooting. They're simply And I think they're in post-production at this point.
Man, that
There were
would've been
two roles
interesting.
that they hadn't mentioned who was going to play him yet, but we already figured out that Kynes, more than likely, they're doing a gender race swap on. And there was one other that I can't remember who was
Leah
it.
Kynes.
Yeah, I think it's Fade. I don't think we know who Fade is yet.
I think you're a dead guy. I think you're
Baptista
right.
is his brother, but I don't know who Fade is.
Verban. Yeah,
Oscar Isaac's supposed to be Leto.
yeah. And it's a young
Oh,
actor,
yeah,
and I don't remember the name of him off the top of my head. That's supposed to be playing Paul.
Yep.
And they've got Zadia, I think her name is. She was from the Spider-Man, the new
Zendaya.
Then Zendaya is supposed to be Chani. I'm honestly okay with her. Now, I will say this: to choose between Sean Young and the other actress who played Chani in the sci-fi movies, it's a hard split for me.
Oh, you're
I'm a Loki.
no,
It's
no
all
way.
Sean Young.
Sean Young, dude. No, Sean Young. Oh, yes. Adiga, hell, yes. Bow to the powers that be.
Absolutely.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy, Sean Young, all day. I don't care if she's completely effing crazy or not in real life. Sean Young. Any day of the week, Sean Young.
Yep.
You can't tell me, we're split. No, it's Sean Young.
That's 4 votes to 3. We both count twice, so it's the way it is. So let it be written.
But who's the eldest in the stream?
Me.
How old are you, Adega?
52.
You've got me by 11 years. 11 years.
I'm an old fart.
I'm the youngest looking, though.
That would have been a different story if I wasn't sick. I was getting carded in my 40s.
Oh, dude, yeah.
I got carded.
Someone was
I was
flirting with you,
carded
buddy.
at 30, and then I was never carded again.
They don't do that anymore. They just ask my birthday. What's your birthday? Oh, blah 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 blah. Okay, they just type it in now. They don't ask to see shit anymore.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad they don't ask to see ID anymore because, my gosh, man, I look like I was 400 pounds in my damn license,
I look like
and
I
I
was a
never
vampire.
reached that weight.
I could
I mean, the
walk
camera
into,
literally packed on pounds.
I could walk into a store at 12 years old and buy a pack of cigarettes. I never got carded till I turned 18. I never got carded till I turned 18. I don't know what the deal was, but as soon as I turned 18, everybody was like, card, ID, and I had a military ID for a while. Half the damn stores wouldn't take that. Sorry, I'm getting off.
Yeah.
It's not morning time. We have a host. It ain't you.
Sorry, Ambassador. Oh, you crap.
Shut up, Loki.
Shut up, guys.
And I just said to Jens Bender, I just sent him a link so he might be joining us here in a few minutes. And getting us back on track. And here's the interesting thing about the Dune universe I don't think most of us realize. This is not like a close configuration or a configuration, whatever, of planets and everything that Shaddam or the Empire is trying to rule over. These worlds are spread everywhere because humanity has really gone out into the stars and pretty much just left, let's just leave Earth behind. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Earth. We're going to go find someplace cool to explore, to live on and what have you. But I kind of want to get back to this whole idea of all the pressures that Paul was under and also Alia of trying to rule over all of these varying factions and trying to deal with the pressures of both being pre-born and, well, you know what? We'll switch from Alia and Alia. We'll switch over to Leto and Donima, her his sister or the sister, or anything, because they don't do a whole lot in the TV movies per se, except at the very end and everything. But you get this impression that here we go. Jens, good evening, sir. Welcome.
Yeah.
There's
Hello,
the man.
Ambassador. Yeah,
Long time. It's been a while, old friend. Good to see you.
yeah. Nice to see you. I was listening last time with the Dune and that because it's like been a two-part, isn't it? Because like it is one of them. I've been discussing a film where there's a lot of things happening in it, a lot of things to discuss with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
Well-
like
Well, and the point I brought up and to the panel, and this is to the chat as well. If anybody wants to chime in, this whole idea of ruling an entire empire, particularly when you're very, very young and you're not terribly experienced. And let's face it, Leto and Ganima were not experienced, and even more so, Alia. And let's just face it, Paul just dropped it in her lap and said, "Here you go, sis. Have at it."
Yeah, he
So-
really just hung her out to dry.
Let's mull this over for a little bit.
Well, I think I'll just be quick. In the short-sighted vision, knowing that she had so many genetic lives at her disposal, and who her parents, or at least a mother, she grew up with a mother, Paul, not knowing, having Psycho Man in her head, probably thought that was the wisest decision. It should have been a really good decision, had not their grandfather exerted so much genetic control over her mind.
Now, he was actually, or their grandfather, the genetic memory thing, because that was kind of confusing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was he actually sentiently alive in her mind, or was it just actual memory that was driving her nuts?
If I remember correctly, it was everything before Jessica was conceived. So everything that he had experienced before Jessica was conceived, that's what was in her head. And everything she knew happened after that.
So it wasn't like possession, it was just merely all of his memories cascading into her.
It wasn't just the Baron's memories, it was the memories of every ancestor from the Harkonnen and Atreides bloodlines they were pouring into Alia. And if you consider the fact that this was an empire that was honestly in turmoil, not to mention even though in Children of Dune, you have that montage where Mohiam, the guild representative, and I think a couple other people are taken out to try and clear the playing field for Alia before Paul leaves. She's still got a big empire she's having to try and wrangle, not to mention her own mind that she's trying to wrangle. And you've got, and here's the other thing, and I think this is honestly, and some people and y'all may disagree with me, I think the idea that they made Irulan a more sympathetic character in a manner of speaking, I think was a much better idea. I don't know if she was more sympathetic in the books or not, because I don't know the books all that well. I think the fact that they made Irulan, Paul's wife, quote unquote, more sympathetic was actually a nice play and everything to try and give Alia some support.
Yeah. I mean, because the whole genetic memory thing, if she was able to control it, she would have been, I'm willing to bet she would have had no problem, because theoretically, if you're able to control all the memories of all your ancestors, kind of like what they, a little bit of a digression here, kind of like what they do with Assassin's Creed. Anybody who knows that, with the whole anime thing. Basically, you can
Trill and Star Trek
through memories while things are happening, and you can learn from these memories in order to effectively run your empire. It's like, okay, I need help with this. Let's see what my ancestors have to say, and there you go. Because she was unable to, because she was unable to control it all, it drove her nuts.
Yeah, well, and Orange, to kind of clarify, I'm not exactly sure if that was. It wasn't a sentient memory of Harkonnen that was tormenting her. But it was simply the genetic memory of her that was in her bloodline. Because, as we've hit upon already, the Atreides children are half Harkonnen. Paul is,
Mhm.
Alia is, Ghanima, and Leto the Second are all half Harkonnen.
Well, no, Ganima and Leto would be like a quarter Harkonnen.
Okay, a quarter, yeah.
Yeah.
But they're part. Let's just put it that way. They're part Harkonnen. And let's face it, the Harkonnens, especially when we're introduced to them in the original movie, they are not the pleasantest of characters. Now, in the prehistory books, as I call them, the Harkonnens are much more sympathetic, but unfortunately, they get screwed over massively by the Atreides, one of the Atreides ancestors during the Butlerian Jihad and the war against the thinking machines.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd say screwed over, but I mean they do get a raw deal. They do get dealt a rotten hand. I would agree with that.
Okay. Yeah. We can put it that way. That's fine.
The best way to really solve it, because I don't remember the show too much. I mean, I remember parts here and there, but did Harkonnen ever basically directly speak to his granddaughter in her mind?
No, but in the sci-fi series, that's how they made it sound. So his genetic expression, they used it like his voice. But no, it was just being influenced by very intense memories because he was quite a terrible individual. I agree with you, Speaker of the Dead, when it talks about Erlon. Anyway, go ahead. It's off topic.
All of them were. All the Harkonnens were evil, maniacal dickweeds, pretty much.
Yeah.
So they were tyrants, basically.
Yeah, because this is something that's brought up in the movie, and it's brought up a little bit in both the miniseries. Gurney Halleck had actually been a prisoner on Giedi Prime. He had fought in the gladiatorial arena, and you get a very good impression of this both in the movie through Patrick Stewart and the other actor who played Gurney Halleck in the TV movies. Giedi Prime is not a pleasant place to live. It is a very, and I think Lynch's interpretation, not to mention the sci-fi version of Giedi Prime, it's a very harsh, it is very industrialized, it is a very brutal place to live. And the Harkonnens, for them, that's hell, and they're Satan.
Another thing, too, for Alia, she has the memory of him, of the Baron, raping little boys and raping her mother. That's in her head. All of that, how it felt, what went on. That poor little kid had that from day one.
Right.
And she's screwed up.
Jesus, that would screw up anybody.
Right.
No wonder she went nuts.
It was because a mum gave birth to her on spice or something, and that's why she had all them thingies, like visions.
No, you're right.
Wasn't Paul originally a preborn, or
no?
Was he not?
No, he was not preborn. How you become preborn is if your mother takes the water of life, and that's what happens with Jessica and Alia, and also what happens with Cheney when she's pregnant with the twins with Leto the Second and Ghanima.
Yeah. So he was pre-vision or whatever.
He was prescient.
No.
He could see the future, right?
Yeah, he was prescient. He had the Parabendu training through his mother from the Bene Gesserits. He had the mental training through the Mentatsu Thufra Hawat, but he was not preborn. And I honestly, when Alia, the young Alia in the movie, and I think also in the TV movie or the miniseries, pronounces him as the Kwisatz Haderach, is not entirely accurate because even he refutes that in the TV movie. He's like, I am not the Kwisatz Haderach. I am something else. the Kwisatz Haderach is someone else, but that's revealed much, much later in the books. It's actually turns out to be a Gola of Duncan, Idaho.
Well, he was supposed to. Paul was supposed to be a girl. Jessica was ordered by the Bene Gesserits not to bear any male children, only bear female children, so that one could be bred with Harkonnen, and that the child from that marriage was supposed to be the Kwisatz Haderach.
Yep, that's exactly it. Because I guess the Bene Gesserits figured they could control a blending of the Atreides and the Harkonnen bloodline. Let's just face it here. The Atreides and the Harkonnens are two of the most strong-willed families and everything, or houses within the Landsrat. Because in a manner of speaking, the Emperor feared both houses, but he feared the Atreides more so because the Atreides were seen as much more respectable, whereas the Harkonnens were much more feared because of the brutality. But we get this picture that Caladan, under the rule of the Atreides, was a fairly decent place to live, unless I'm misrepresenting that here. And
it was supposed to be like paradise.
I wouldn't say it's a paradise, but it was much more an idyllic world. Think more along the lines of maybe Alderaan from Star Wars or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So, but if y'all have a different perspective on that, please share.
Well, yeah, Caladan was always portrayed in, I think, as kind of a pastoral place. The impression you get, I think, from the books, particularly from the the prequel novels, the House of Atreides, House of Harkonnen, that series, they spend a lot of time on Caladan in those books, and it kind of has the feel that Caladan's kind of like Italy, kind of like southern Italy or southern France, something like that. It's wine country, and they have lots of forest and like rolling hills and stuff, and sea coasts.
Well, yeah, because Paul makes the point to, I think it's either Thufir Gurney or maybe even Stilgar. On Caladan, we rule by sea and air. Here on Arrakis, we rule by desert power. And you get the impression that every world has their advantages on how they rule, but you get the impression that the Atreides house is a much more benevolent governing house for the common folk of Caladan, whereas you get this the Harkonnens are portrayed as much more barbarous or tyrannical of a governing house, where they actually put the common folk into gladiatorial arenas where Fade Ralpha can just go in and murder them willy-nilly. So
barbaric, like.
Didn't catch that. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
What'd you say, Jens?
I was saying like they're really barbaric because they're sort of like, I just say they're being brought up real rough and that, and so to them it's just normal. That's just sort of like practice sport, innit? It's like hitting a few home runs for them. It's like what you do, sort of thing, innit?
Well, and you get the interesting thing that we have with the sci-fi miniseries, particularly with the conclusion, is you get that familia connection between House Atreides and House Harkonnen that isn't very much spoken of in the original Lynch movie, but is punched home much more so and everything in the sci-fi miniseries, or the first movie, the first Dune miniseries, where Paul actually, after he kills Fade Ralph, he's like, I'm paraphrasing here, rest in peace, cousin, because he's addressing Fade Ralph as a relative, which is accurate.
Yeah.
where you don't get a whole lot of that familial connection in the Lynch movie. And honestly, I think that's one of the strengths of the sci-fi miniseries. Now, granted, they don't have the budget, but they're able to stick to the plot of the books much more closely because they've got more time to build connections between the different characters. And I think honestly, I think that's what is much more appealing about the sci-fi miniseries, or anything, both with Dune and Children of Dune, is they're able to build relationships between the different characters because you've got several episodes per miniseries where you can have this understanding of how everybody is related between the different houses, particularly Atreides and Harkonnen. And you get this impression that there is a resentment that is long lasting particularly between Atreides and Harkonnen, and House Carino is kind of like the tool by which the Bene Gesserits and the Spacing Guild are manipulating these two houses to go to war with one another, because this is almost like a Cold War, in a matter of speaking, between the Atreides and the Harkonnen. There is no open conflict per se. You may have some assassination attempts, particularly when the Atreides get onto Arrakis and the attempt on Paul's life is carried out by House Harkonnen. But this is much more of a Cold War type of situation with the Atreides and the Harkonnen, more than being open conflict. So I think that was something that was very interesting that Herbert spoke to and everything, because at the time that he wrote these books, the world itself between the U.S. and Russia was in a Cold War. I think he was also kind of speaking to that. What do y'all think?
It's possible. Again, as like Adega said, and like I've mentioned, that it was very much a parable where it's an allegory of the Middle East, and you've got these political powers that are sort of vying for control. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's a one-to-one comparison necessarily, but yeah, the Harkonnens and the Atreides being sort of at odds and trying to control this region, it's certainly the parallel does apply.
Yeah.
Well, you have like if I remember right, he saw Frank Herbert, the Sunni and the Shia, and how different they were, and some of them were brutal, and based those, and the Fremen were based off the Bedouin.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But it was
Yeah.
Yeah, I think though it's definitely about sort of like trades and sort of how to keep the peace, but then obviously like there's things where it does have to go to war and that. But yeah, it is sort of like a war sort of like film or sort of like battles and that. Keeping sort of like the peace, so you don't have big, massive sort of wars and that.
Well, and Speaker brings up a point. Also, he says that the Spacing Guild made war openly nearly prohibitive, because one thing that in the Lynch, one of the Lynch edits, they have a prologue. I think it's done by Dino De Laurentiis. And he talks about a little bit of the prehistory, because the Spacing Guild has a monopoly on space travel. You have to be in good standing with them or have favor with them if you want to do any type of massive type of trade or transportation or anything, because they're it.
Right.
And I think what Herbert did with his books is he did speak to several different types of things.
See you, Jason.
Yeah, Jason, thank you for coming, man.
Later,
Appreciate Jason, have a good night, man. Anyway, getting back on track. what Herbert was doing with his books, he was speaking to a variety of different topics, and one that honestly was very prevalent at the time was the whole idea of the Cold War between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. But what he does is he introduces this other element and everything in the terms of the Spacing Guild, where all the other houses are almost subservient to the Spacing Guild, because if you don't pay your dues and you don't stay in good standing with the Spacing Guild, you can't do much of anything. They can pretty much shut you down and not allow you to do any type of trade or any type of travel anywhere within the Empire. Because, and I think this is something that I brought up and everything, these are worlds that are very much scattered about. They're not within close contact of anyone. And you have to go to the Spacing Guild and say, hey, I want to have X number of transports put on one of your highliners to be sent off to Y. And Spacing Guild can pretty much say, we don't particularly like you. You haven't been paying your dues. We don't like what you've been doing. Ooh, Kathia, good point.
Yeah, like the UN. So.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're not in good standing with the Spacing Guild, they can pretty much shut down. And open warfare is pretty much they put a kibosh on any of that. But Kathia said the Demichis and everything were prelates, and the Banks rolled the church to get into. I know what she's talking about. This is a little bit into church history, which I'm studying currently. So she's talking about history of our own world and everything, obviously. But the other interesting thing about the Dune movies, in particular the miniseries, is it talks about, I think in some ways, it talks about nature versus nurture, particularly with the preborns, with Ollie and the twins.
Yeah, I could see that.
That is an interesting take.
Well,
I think it does both, though, because before Paul got the water of life, it was all about what he was trained, the example of his father, listening to his mother. That was all nurture, where Sister was all nature, all genetic imprinting. You know, so there was two diametric opposites, and they both went nuts.
Well, Paul didn't go nuts. He had enough good sense and marriage speaking to back away before things really went haywire with him, because he didn't have to deal with all the genetic memory that Alia did. Because
he did. He got it all when he took the water of life. They all do. All the Bene Gesserit mothers, when they take that, they gain all that information.
Yeah,
he had the benefit of being taught how to control his mind and emotions and everything before he was experienced to it.
Yeah, I forgot that he did take the water of life and everything at a certain point in the main series and in the movie. I forgot about that. Thank you, Adega. Yeah, because he had the Mentat training, he had the Bene Gesserit training to combat him going insane. And Leto and everything, he had to fight through that same crucible himself. And he talks about it and everything when he's when he's held captive by the what's the name of that one house? Or not one house, but that one siege. Siege Tabarak, I think it is, on Arrakis. It's the one that's
Tabir, or is that it?
Tabir Tabarak, something along those lines or anything. They were a house that had gone rogue against the other sieges or something along those lines. It was back in the prehistory of the Fremen and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Siege Tabarak, I think, is it. And he's held captive by them, and they keep force feeding him spice to try and make him go crazy. And they're actually, one of the captives comes to him and says, "Are you crazy yet? Are you crazy like your sister?" And he just takes he takes a swig of pure spice essence, and he's like, "This does nothing to me now. I have passed through the crucible that has driven my aunt mad. Because as far as I know, Ganima never takes the water of life, nor is she heavily exposed to spice to any certain degree. But she ends up marrying, I think it's one of the daughters of a Shaddam. Oh, for heaven's sakes, what was his name?
The Emperor.
Darn it. No, it was one of the daughters of this. It was one of the daughters of Shaddam, who had a child and everything, a son and everything.
Oh, you mean
That-
Fenric? Is that who you mean?
That's it. Yes, Fenric. Because it's Wencesia, who's played by Susan Sarandon in the second in the Children of Dune miniseries, who has a son named Fenric, who ends up marrying Ganima. I'm trying to remember everything in any of the books. Does she ever take does she ever take the water of life? Does she ever go through that whole ordeal, or does she stay clear of it because she sees what it's doing to her brother?
Ganima. She doesn't take the water of life in Children of Dune.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't know. Maybe in the timeline, maybe she did sometime after that. I don't remember. But she doesn't in the actual book. No.
Okay. Because, well, and actually, it's in the epilogue of the Children of Dune, where you have that voiceover by Ganima saying he carries the weight that I can't carry or none of us can carry, because he sees what has to be done to make humanity evolve further.
Right.
And you get the impression in God Emperor especially. And I know I'm moving beyond the sci-fi miniseries, and this is some of my own research that I've done. Leto the Second, you start to see his evolution in Dune Messiah, which I think is the third book, because it goes Dune, Children of Dune, and Dune Messiah.
Dune Messiah is the second one.
Dune Messiah is the second, then Children of Dune.
Children of Dune is the third one.
Okay, all right. Where you start to see the evolution of Leto the Second, and you see him starting to go through that physical transformation. And honestly, I have seen artist renderings of what Leto the Second would have looked like. To my mods, if you can look up Quinn's theories and put his link to his channel in the chat and everything, I appreciate it, because he does a lot of Dune lore, and I'm actually pulling from what he has done and everything to fill in the gaps here. But what Leto looks like, or Leto the Second looks like, in the later iterations, he's almost gone beyond what looks human. He doesn't look quite human anymore. He looks like a melting.
He becomes a human worm hybrid, basically.
Right.
Yeah. But I think what Leto the Second does and everything is, and I've mentioned this previously, he's putting so many restrictions in the fact that everybody knows that he can pretty much see everything that anybody is going to possibly do, or anything that anybody is possibly thinking. And everybody's afraid to move against him, in a manner of speaking, but they're still trying. But that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to make humanity evolve beyond the state that it currently is in. And he wants them to, in essence, openly rebel against him. And I think, honestly, that's an interesting thing, this idea of forced evolution of the human race. And I think that's a very interesting concept that Herbert presents in the later books in the Dune series. So,
well, yeah, he part of course, what's Leto, his plan is the golden path. He keeps calling.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and, Cigar and the Bai, I think it's
a lot
called.
of the he, as you mentioned, he sort of clamps down on travel. He won't let people travel, and he won't let them travel in space, because he I'm trying to remember now. Okay, now I'm totally drawing a blank. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Did a thingy the thingy virus might be just stop travel?
Well, one thing that he restricted very heavily was travel, but I think the other thing that he did was he heavily rationed how much spice everybody got.
Yes.
Because at this point he was heavily terraforming Arrakis at this point, and the worms were actually starting to slowly die off because Arrakis was turning from less of a arid climate more into a more of a temperate climate, and that's something that the worms couldn't.
Yeah, in God Emperor of Dune, the sandworms are pretty much extinct at
Yeah,
that point because
and
he's turned it into a paradise, into a very kind of green world. But this is the long range goal for him was he was doing his own breeding program like the Bene Gesserit, and he wanted to through guided breeding create people who could be invisible to prescience, people who people who could see the future could not detect them and therefore predict their actions, because he knew as long as there are these prescient people who can see what other people are going to do in the future, then really humanity in the long term kind of has no free will, or they'll be ultimately always at the mercy of people who know what's going to happen next. And he was trying to breed people who would be invisible to that sort of foresight.
Yeah, because one of the things that Leto II was trying to do was break humanity out of the doldrums that had existed for so long, because especially after the Butlerian Jihad, and they had pretty much wiped away any type of artificial intelligence technology, and you had these schools set up. Thank you, Shea. Appreciate it. You had humanity almost not advancing any forward in its evolution. What Layla II was trying to do was force evolution of humanity. And honestly, I think that's a very interesting concept, because especially considering how, and we might be going off on a big rabbit hole here, how our own society and our own existence has kind of hit in a matter of speaking, a brick wall. And what Herbert was suggesting was this idea that humanity needs to take a leap forward in how it exists and how it thinks and how it's
Ethics.
thinking of itself.
Yeah,
I put it. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I think there is that sort of thing where it's that like back to nature thing where Paul gets sort of like one with the worms and that sort of.
I think Classic answered that pretty good.
Yeah.
In chat. And then I also put you guys were talking about the God Emperor. I put one artist rendition as my avatar.
Yeah, I think I've seen that before. That's actually a pretty good one to dig.
Ambassador, I'm sorry to interrupt. I actually do got to get going because I got to be up at 5 a.m. So
good
Orange,
morning.
that's okay, man.
Having me
Hey, good to see you, man. And if you have a chance to catch up on Evil Dead next week and everything, you want to be part of the panel and everything, I will definitely send you a link, man. It was good to see you. It was good to have you, man.
Nice to meet you, man. Take it easy.
Yeah. You have a good night, bud. Get you some rest.
So I don't want to like take anybody off topic here, but there are apparently Reddit posts claiming that Legendary is in talks with Jared Leto to play Fade Rotha.
Ooh,
Jared Leto.
I
to
don't
play
think.
Fade
Well,
Rotha.
But the thing is, I think they already finished principal photography on the film.
There
Right.
is
I
no
think they-
Fade
I heard
Rotha.
that.
There is no Fade. Well, the Fade's not going to be in the first part of the movie.
Oh, that's
and
right.
that
That's
might-
right. They're splitting it up. So maybe, I guess,
Yeah, because the
maybe,
first
maybe it could be.
they're splitting up the first book. They're splitting it into 2 parts, which I think is honestly smart. And no, Loki, you're good and everything.
I
That
think
might
it
not
should
be
be
a
3 movies myself.
What'd you
Yeah,
say,
I think
Classic?
you could do a trilogy of it. I think.
Trilogy. Yes.
That as big
Well, I
as
don't
that
know who he is. What did he play in? Because I'm
He
terrible
was
with
the
names.
Jared Leto.
Joker in
Jared
Suicide
Leto.
Squad.
Yeah, Jared
Oh,
Leto.
the
He
real
played
skinny dude.
Joker in Suicide Squad. He was an Alexander with what's his name? Colin Farrell. He's done a lot of movies and everything.
Is
He
that
was in
Uh,
Blade
what
Runner
was his name?
2049.
Was he in
Yes, he
2049?
was. He was the guy that took
Yeah.
what's his name's job, the synth creator.
Yeah.
Oh,
he was the
that's
main
right.
bad guy.
Tyrell. He took Tyrell's company. He's the
Yeah.
guy who
Okay.
bought Tyrell's company.
Okay. So, hey guys, I'm gonna step away for just a minute. I will be right back. So go ahead and continue on without me.
I wouldn't be surprised if Adiga beat the hell out of him and stole his sunglasses because I think Adiga has the exact same.
I just had to look him up to see who he was.
Yeah. I mean, he's not. I mean, the impression in the books is that Fade is a big guy. He's like he's a big, formidable warrior.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's not really who I think he's not my idea of what the character would be. But then again, neither was Sting. So,
Yeah. That was Sting.
that was one thing I thought that the sci-fi version actually got better. They got this pretty big, brawny guy to play Fade. He wasn't a particularly good actor, though.
Batista, I think he's going to play the other dude.
Yep. It's Batista playing
He's playing Raban.
on. Yeah.
I think that's a real good cast.
The Beast. The Beast.
Yeah.
Perfect for him.
Yeah, the
too.
cast overall is really pretty good.
Now, I don't know if that's true or not. This is a Reddit thing. So, take it with a grain of salt. But
Yeah.
I think they could get someone a lot better to play Fade, personally.
Yeah, that first movie, Lynch did such a great job casting his film. The cast is just really good pretty much overall.
Right. No, and I think Momoa is awesomely cast.
Is Duncan? Yeah.
Yep.
The Swordmaster Duncan Idaho.
And that's a good part to have because if they continue doing Dune books, he's one of the few characters that really continues on. He's basically in just about every Dune novel to some degree. Because they keep the Lilacs who keep cloning him and bringing him back to life.
All right. Yeah, because how many books is there then?
What's that?
How many books is there?
The main Dune story has Herbert did 6 books, I believe, and then his son worked with an author, and they created 2 more books to finish it. So I believe it's 8 books altogether.
Right.
Jay
Right.
Anderson.
And then there's been several. There's been like a couple of prequel trilogies and several spin-off books.
Right. Yeah. Because I know like about the film and that back in the 80s. Because I've seen it and that with Sting and some but yeah, it was like good I thought that, but yeah, but they're doing like a remake and that, and if you say there's 8 books and that, there could be like 8 films or something.
Well, the
have to
first
be
one's
more
going to
than
be
that.
2, like they said,
Right.
so that would be at least 9 films.
Oh,
if they
right,
did the
yeah.
whole series.
Could you imagine if they'd have done this in the 90s and had like Marky Mark play Fade? Hey, Paul, say hi to your mom for me. Oh, crap.
You were so twisted.
I try, brother. I try.
Hey, Ma, I got the spice madness.
Hey, Ma. Oh, yes. Yes, brother. Yes. Oh, it spreads. It spreads like fire. We're going to burn Ambassador's channel down. It's gone. It's like, what happened? Oh, we burned that shit down. Man,
When in Rome, do like the Vandals. Burn it down.
burn it down.
He might
Now I
actually be.
You got to have David Hasselhoff in there somewhere. It's the 90s.
Yeah, off. He
He'd
could
be
play
the emperor.
Leto, I guess.
And you play Lido. Hey, Kit, the Baron's trying to kill me. Come get me. You got to have a point where he's talking into his watch at some point.
Will Smith could be Paul.
Yeah, Will Smith would be Paul.
Yeah, yeah.
I swear the Sardaukar terror troops, they had two eyelids. The first one blinked and then the second blinked.
Welcome to Arrakis.
Welcome to Arrakis. Shit. No, you gotta have Martin. You gotta have Martin as not Duncan, but Gurney Halleck. Shit, this got real.
That could work, actually.
Shit. I thought you were dead. Nah, homie, not this time. You were dead, dog.
Open the hood, man. You can't kill me.
Oh,
Man, that ain't spice. I got spice for you. Oh.
Mark Wahlberg's actually not bad as long as he's, as long as he's not trying to play somebody who's supposed to be really smart. Like when he's playing a teacher, or like what was that Transformers movie where he's an inventor? He's just not very credible when he's trying to be really smart.
Although to be fair to him, in the Transformers movies, his inventions are like pretty crap, and they don't work all that good. So.
Oh, guys, Yui, I've got the perfect person to play Yui. So Duke Leto, he gets stabbed by that thing, right? He falls down, he looks up, and he's like, Yui, because, Yui's the traitor. And suddenly, there he is, La who's there?
Jim Gary.
Loser.
You could have Clint Eastwood being the Reverend Mother. It's my Gumbar. You feel lucky?
Oh. No, you'd have to have him as Steelguard. Get off my lawn. Oh, man.
Well, I tell you what. So, and the ambassador was talking about, kind of touching on what the story is about. So, Herbert himself had said that it was basically about the dangers of raising people up as these leaders. Basically giving them all this power and then not questioning them and that sort of thing. Yeah. And do you think? What are your opinions on that? And do you think that is Paul a good guy or a bad guy? Because I think you can make a pretty sound argument that he's actually the biggest villain in science fiction. Because he engineers I don't know how many trillions of deaths.
Yeah, and he started off not wanting to. And yet it became a march across all the... And maybe he might have been trying to draw a parallel with Muhammad. I don't know.
Well, the Fremen wanted death, man. They were like, we will go out into the galaxy and wage a great jihad.
Right.
The Fremen kill everybody anyway. They were sick of this shit. They were sick and tired of being treated like crap, and they wanted to go out and kill everybody anyway. If anything, that postponed that just a little bit. So you could say he saved a lot of lives, at least for a little while. Oh, he's back. He's back. We talk about the fire. We didn't burn anything, boss.
What did you all do?
We behaved.
We just talked about Will Smith.
Yeah, Will Smith as Paul Atreides in the 90s. Martin as Gurney Halleck. Shit just got real. Jim Carrey.
I leave for 5 minutes. I leave for 5 minutes.
Jim Carrey would be an awesome Fade.
Fade, Hey, Paul,
are we talking about an alternative casting for the original Dune? Is that what we're talking about?
No, 90s.
90s version.
Oh, 90s version. Okay, well then here's one for you. Patrick Stewart is Baron Vladimir Harkonnen.
Oh,
make him the thing he hates. Because what does he call the Harkonnens? He calls them a bunch of animals.
Spencers are giving me a rash.
Oh yeah, no. Come here, number one.
Never. Oh, good. Oh, to quote Yoda, down a dark path, this line of thinking will take us.
Sorry, comics. I know you were trying to get serious, but we.
That's okay. No problem.
Oh,
it doesn't take much to get Loki off, and it's fun to do it.
I leave for 5 minutes to go to the bathroom and get me something to drink. Speaker, please bring us some sanity back to these proceedings. I love the fact that turning the Fremen loose on the universe terrifies everyone because, yeah, the Fremen are a bunch of BAs. They'll kick everybody's butt, which they obviously did, not to mention there's a crap ton of them, and there's a crap ton of more of them being born.
Let's face it, the Fremen are dicks.
The Fremen are dicks.
Classic, did I hear you right? Did you say the Fremen were a bunch of dicks?
Yeah. Well, they have this big, in the first novel, they got this big dream about greening the planet, making it a paradise, not this barren wasteland.
Yeah,
and
who wants to live on a crap hole?
And then in Dune Messiah, you're seeing the process of that beginning. But then the Fremen are already getting pissed off about that, and a lot of them are like hating that the world's changing and, that the old ways are going to be forgotten, and some are even plotting against Paul. It's like, well, what is your problem? This is exactly what you wanted him to do.
This was Leah Kynes' idea.
It's politics. Happens here too. Can't please everyone or anyone, anytime, anywhere.
My moderator wanted to be a Fremen. Yeah, I can see how they'd be cool. They got those zifty suits. They got the blue eyes. They got the Chris knife.
I was wanted to buy those contacts.
And talk about being consider the fact that Chris Knife is a tooth from a sandworm. How much of a badass do you have to be to pull a tooth from a sandworm and survive?
Well, I'm sure they probably take them from dead worms.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. We don't know for sure. For all we know, that those crazy mothers would crawl into the open mouth of a sandworm and pull one out. Oh, hey, look, this is a good one. Yoink.
Yeah, that might be the thingy test for them. The extreme test.
Remember, one of the tests of manhood of a Fremen is to actually ride a sandworm.
Right.
Mm.
Ambassador, explain something to me. Explain something to me. What is the deal with Patrick Stewart carrying that damn dog into battle? I mean, he's got that puppy and he's like, Poduclito! And he's running into battle with a pug. He's like cradling a pug in his hand, running into battle. I don't understand.
I guess maybe Gurney just had a very close attachment to that pug. And I will say this, of all the dog breeds in the world, pugs are my favorite because they're so ugly, they're cute. Kind
They're
of like
also
you,
the
Lucky.
dumbest. I used to work with a vet. I did a lot of chiropractic veterinary stuff. And the vets all said every year they tested those dogs for intelligence, every dog, and the pugs were always the dumbest. I mean, you look at them and maybe they're cute, but you could say, "Here, want a treat?" And they're like going, "I got a crap."
I don't think they're cute.
Well, and I think the other thing, I'll say this about both iterations of Gurney Halleck. Thank you, speaker. You are awesome, and that's why we love you. I will say this about both versions of Gurney Halleck, for lack of a better term. Gurney Halleck was a badass.
Yeah, he's a good character.
Well, if you consider what all he had to go through, particularly in the prequel books, because we find out that he goes off to some alien world or something, trains with some group of sword fighters or whatever, and this world is little puppers.
I think we're thinking of Duncan. Duncan went to Gannaz and joined the sword master.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, classic, you're right. We're thinking of Duncan, Idaho. He goes off to, because he's the weapon master for House of Atreides. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Gurney, he was basically a thrall of the Harkonnens.
Well,
and,
he wasn't.
He's basically their slave, and he escapes, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, classic.
Which is why he hates the Fremen so much, or the Harkonnens so much.
Oh yeah. When you hear Patrick Stewart said, "Let me kill this Harkonnen for you, sir." Ooh. And so many great characters in these books and these movies. Where do you start? I know the last
First page.
Okay, now I asked this on the last stream. Who's your favorite house or whatever, or who's your favorite character? Who do you most identify with? Who is your favorite character? Either from the movies that we have or from all of the books. Who's your favorite?
Stilgar.
Okay, and why?
Because he's a badass. He doesn't put up with shit. And when Jessica grabs him and he's like, "You are worth 10 times your weight in water," he immediately realizes this bitch is bad. And he doesn't play around with it. He immediately offers her a place in his house. He offers Paul a place. And when one of his own guys is like, "No, I challenge him because he pushed me down. I'm such a little bitch. He pushed me down, so I'm going to fight him to death." He's like, "Hey, fight him." And he's like, "If you win, I will kill you myself." He is a badass, and he doesn't put up with shit. That's why.
Okay, classics. What about you?
It's tough because the Dune has a lot of really good characters. I don't know, maybe Leto, because he's such a fascinating character himself.
Which
Leto II, the God Emperor.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Jens, what about you?
I go boring in that. I just say, is it Duncan or Paul, the one who's all about, who takes the spice and that, and his sister and that, and his mummy, who he played the head sort of doodles. The film it's all about fish. Yeah.
Okay. And Dago, what about you?
Sean Young. Wait, no, actual people in the book.
John Young.
Duncan, I have to go with Duncan still. You asked me that last week. Just because he is such a stud that they had to keep bringing him back. And he was all about duty. It was it.
Yeah, his duty to House Atreides. Yeah, absolutely.
and he took a lot of spice. So that's what I. Because forget that spice and that it was where like it obviously it's like drugs and that, and it was one of them where he probably went on like a '60s sort of like Woodstock trip, didn't he, and to like do it so he could get in control of the worms. It was one of them where like.
Okay. Well, being we're sharing pets in a manner of speaking, I have a pet. We have a cat, but we also have another little fella and everything. I'll show you all. And I'm actually gonna have to step away because I need to get him more food. But we have this little fella right here. It's a hamster.
Yeah, I tried to get my girl Freya out. I was going to show you when Adiga brought out his dog, but that bitch damn near took my hand off when I tried to get her out of her cage.
Well,
you can't really put a Rottweiler on your lap.
She's a mean ass
This little fella down here is named Pippin. And yes, it's from Lord of the Rings. So, but y'all continue with the discussion. I'm going to get him some food, and I'll be back in a couple minutes.
Have any of y'all ever seen a hamster like monkey bar across their cage before? Because that's what she does. Man. Ever seen anything like that? She like monkey bars. Yeah, with her front two feet, she'll monkey bar across the top of the cage. She'll climb up to the top and then monkey bar across. I've never seen anything like that before.
I've seen mice do it, but I wouldn't think a hamster would.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's a mean bitch.
It's they're like trying to get to the top to like pop the lid, because if you ever leave the lid open, someone can just climb up like that and they're out.
I'm getting. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to say goodbye. Some of you know I have He's 22, but he's got cerebral palsy. It's a rare form of anthrotoid, so he's got very little. Think of a 1-year-old, except he's 22. His brain works, but he has a hard time communicating. While he's up and talking, I mean, just making noises because he can't really talk. He has to choose things to communicate. So I need to go take care of that. I'm going to have to let you guys go. Have a wonderful evening. Always fun with all of you. And Loki, thanks a ton for everything today. You know what I mean.
Oh, anytime, brother. Anytime. And I hope you have a great weekend, brother.
You too.
Good night, Adiga.
Yeah, good night. Yeah. Like to the Sunday, it's like you got to sort out your family first, isn't it? Like,
sure.
Yeah.
Higa's a wonderful guy. If y'all haven't checked out his book, check out his channel and look up his book. He's got his book on Amazon. I just got a copy of it just a couple days ago and just started into it, and it is great so far.
Hey, what's it called?
It's Adiga Evolution, and you can find it on Amazon. He's got like a preview for it on his channel. Shia Storm just threw that link out for his channel. He's got a preview on there, and I think the link to the book is in that like preview video.
Yeah, so like in the tab things. Yeah.
So Loki and Jen. So have y'all just seen the movies, or have y'all read any of the books?
I read the prequels. I did not read I read Dune. I read the prequel House books. I did not read the Valyrian Jihad, and I didn't read the books after Dune because I didn't even know there were books after Dune until like a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I've just sort of like seen the film in the 80s, because when it came out, I was like 10, or because it was 85 or when it came out, I think
it was 84, I think.
Oh yeah, well, like I was like that age where like I didn't really understand the film as much as just seeing like the gun thing, you know, where they did it with the voice boxes and all that, and like riding worms. I wasn't like but like, yeah, I like, as I say, like, watched it, and then like, because I bought the little toys of them, but like, I didn't keep them, which I should have done because they might be worth a bit. But like, I was into to like the film when I was like a kid. But then when I got older and that, I watched it as an older person, and when you understand a bit more about politics and that, you like can see like, oh yeah, about how it's sort of like, as you say, the waters, the oil in the Middle East, and the spice is sort of like a drug that like, because I think it's like an acid sort of base where it sort of like gets you like off on one in it.
You think it's like a psychedelic drug?
Yeah, yeah, because like where he like communicates with, and he can see visions and that, and so
Right.
like, yeah,
Well,
probably.
I don't know if and this was what he was drawing from, but in Hindu mythology, the gods and some of the characters, they drink this substance called soma, and it makes you immortal. It keeps you immortal, and it also seems to cause like these very vivid dreams. And I've wondered if Herbert wasn't drawing from that, at least in part when he created the spice.
Yeah, and have you heard of them shaman seeds that like tribes will take to like, and the peyote, it's like a peyote what Indians take or whatever, to like get a vision and like have like some kind of sort of experience of like hallucinations and that. But yeah, it's definitely like some kind of drug, on it.
They never really explained that very good in the movie. Sorry, Ambassador.
Okay, what'd y'all do to Adega? I leave, and he's gone. What'd you do?
My hamster Freya ate him. She's a mean bitch. I warned y'all.
He had to go take care of his kid.
Okay, I figured that he always has a good reason, so that's fine. I was just a little poking of fun, so anyhow.
And I'll actually be going at 10 because I'm in the National Guard and I got to be at drill tomorrow morning, so I got to get up.
Well, we're actually going to wrap up here shortly because I think we've covered this topic pretty well. I mean, we had the 2-hour stream, or a little over 2-hour stream last week, and we're coming up on 2 hours here, so we'll probably wrap up here shortly too. So that's fine. So anyway,
Ambassador, you say like the Evil Dead. You're doing a next stream on?
Yeah, actually, we're going to be doing it Thursday because next weekend is Valentine's Day weekend, and we're going. I'm going to be spending the weekend with Madam Ambassador, and I've actually got the day off and everything. I've got that Friday off, so I think I'm gonna do that stream on Thursday. So I have the day Friday to spend with the missus.
Just curious, what time do you think?
I might keep it around 7 or 8 because that seems to be a good time. I know there are some other people that stream, and I don't like taking away from others or anything, but that seems to be a good time that works for myself and for everybody that wants to stream with me. So I think we'll keep it around that time.
Cool.
So if any of you want to be on that stream or anything on Thursday and everything, I'll send you a link, obviously. Something else I wanted to bring up about just the Dune books in general and everything, not so much, or just the franchise as a whole. I think the fact that this is an IP and an intellectual property that has existed since the 60s, and we're still talking about it into the 2000s, into the 2020s now, or the beginning of the 2020s. I think that very much speaks to the longevity of this franchise, for the simple fact that Herbert was very much a very forward-thinking author. And I want to get y'all's thoughts on that.
Well, one of the things that there's one of the controversies with the new movie. Before they even like started filming, they were talking about, well, what is the Baron going to be like? Is the Baron going to be the same Baron we got in the 80s Dune? Is he going to be the same Baron in the books? Because there was a lot of gay hate, I guess, is what you'd call it.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, and they speak to this in the books, and they speak to it more so in the sci-fi series and the manner of speaking than they do in the original movie. Is the fact that Vladimir Harkonnen is actually a open homosexual, or at least
it's worse than that, because he goes after young people, like young people and boys, and
yeah, he's the main villain, and it's not a positive portrayal at all.
It's not at all. And that's one of the things I hope. I don't think they're going to keep it, but they should keep it, because it's not the gay thing that's bad about him. It's the fact that he's doing this stuff to young boys. It's not, it's not saying, well, okay, he's gay and he's bad. No, he's basically a pedo. That's what he is. And that, to me, that's not saying anything bad about anybody that chooses that type of lifestyle, a gay lifestyle. That's saying something bad about people that take advantage of young kids. And I would agree with that. I wish they kept that. I hope they keep that in there, because it just goes to show how evil and sick the guy is.
My guess is that they won't. My guess is they'll keep the homosexuality, but first of all, they'll probably tone it down if it's even present. Because because if the fact is, if they make this character just the way he is in the books and really hammer home that he's gay, it's going to be a PR, nightmare for him.
It's going to, it will be
canceled.
Yeah, I think this idea. I'm not saying that Herbert was by any means homophobic, but I think it simply gives a added dimension to Harkonnen's character. Anything that this is honestly this is a complex idea that Herbert has introduced, because you have a villain that is seemingly openly homosexual, or I don't want to categorize him as a pedophile, although he does go in the movies that we get. He doesn't go after exceedingly young. He doesn't go after children, but he goes after
pretty boys.
Yeah, but he goes after mature adults. He doesn't go after, well, when I say mature, he goes after
boys.
And he's on top of these other things, he's like kind of a sexual sadist too.
That too, yeah. I think that's
Could you imagine him going after soy boys and that being in the movie that he's like?
Oh yeah, yeah. He lures them in with impossible burgers and soul lattes.
Yes.
Oh boy.
I tell you something though. I think Michael Moore and all, he'd be good to play him.
Yeah,
Michael Moore.
No, because Michael Moore can't act much more than he can direct.
True, yeah.
There, I went there. I said it. Michael Moore is a hack director.
I didn't mean to open a can of worms. It's like the giant pink elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about with this movie. Nobody wants to talk about it. The fact that
they'll be talking about it when the movie's in the run up to it. Believe me, it'll be talked about a lot. I bet.
I wouldn't be surprised, but here's the interesting thing, because if you look back at our own history, particularly during the Greek and Roman empires,
Uh-huh.
they they weren't necessarily openly accepting of those type of people, but they were tolerated in a manner of speaking. But it wasn't until the Roman Empire went Christian, in a manner of speaking, that persecution of that lifestyle became much more prevalent because it was seen as an abomination, when it was very much more frowned upon. A lot of, and I hope I am not, I honestly, sincerely hope I'm not miscategorizing here, but a lot of members of the Roman government saw homosexuality as degenerative. They saw it as one of the ways that the empire was starting to break down, that their society was starting to break down. And I don't think that's necessarily inaccurate for their time. Now, am I saying that's true of our society, of our culture now? No, I'm not. Because I have to look at this from two different lenses and everything. One, I have to look at it from the social lens, but I also look at it from the lens of my faith. And I'm almost worried about going down this road because I don't know if it's going to give me a strike or not. But
well, don't do that. Don't do that, brother. I mean, just don't do that. I didn't bring it up for that. I just
no. You're Loki. You're fine. I will make this comment. And I'll leave it at this. It is a complex situation, both societally and from the realm of matters of faith, and every person has to ration out how they feel about it. I'll leave it at that, because it is something that every Christian, or most Christians, have to reconcile within their own mind. So, anyway, something. Okay, let's get off this topic and talk about something a little more.
Indeed.
Well,
Sorry.
No.
I just had to bring it up.
Loki. This is part of what you do when you live stream. You start going down these rabbit holes, and sometimes you have to either say, okay, we're just going to go deep dive, we're going to go on this, or we're going to say, let's pull the reins back and okay, speaker, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Bravo, sir.
Thank you. Speaker for the dead. You just pulled our butts out of the fire. Thank you. I think one other interesting aspect of the Dune books and the Dune movies, and I'm going to speak more so to the Children of Dune miniseries, because that's the only adaptation we have at this point. Again, I say, please let the first movies be good and let them continue on with the series. I would love to see them go all the way through to Chapter House. At least go through to Chapter House. Okay. Jens, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm thinking they should be all right, because they've got like Jason Momoa and sort of thing, and he's probably one of them who, if they started going too like crappy, he'd probably be like, no, I don't need this. And they got, because it'd be one of them where there'd be so many like actors. I think like it should be all right, but you never know. Let's fingers crossed.
Well, I'm not so much worried about the cast. I think the cast will do. I think the casting of this movie is extraordinarily good because, speaker, you're killing me. Yeah, that whole thing that thing went viral, and I think it's still trending in some aspects. That whole thing from the Golden Globes with Ricky Gervais. He's your friend, and I don't care. Anyway, I'm not so much worried about the cast doing their job. I think the people that are in charge of the production, the director, the writers, all of them, I think they have I think they have done a fairly decent job. Granted, we don't know a whole lot yet. I'm not concerned, but I'll be interested to see how well it is received by the public. Because this is a very, like I mentioned before, this is an old property. It is not one that has been, except for those that might have watched the sci-fi miniseries, both of them, Dune and Children of Dune. It's not one that's very prevalent in the social consciousness or anything, except for maybe some very hardcore, hardcore fans.
Yeah,
But
the
here's the
normies
thing.
aren't gonna.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the one thing that they can grab people with is the cast. But not only this, if they market this thing right, if they say, okay, y'all liked Blade Runner 2049, y'all liked Arrival, because those are the two things that Denis Villeneuve is known well for. People will go, ooh, I like those movies. Let's go see what this guy does. And this could be, some people are saying this could be the 2020s iteration of Lord of the Rings. Denis Villeneuve could be the Peter Jackson, Jackson of the 2020s.
Yeah.
So I think society and I think culture in general is starving for good science fiction and good fantasy. And I think Dune is one of those properties that speaks to both.
I think
and I am
sorry to interrupt. So I think
no.
that
Go ahead.
I mean, I think that expecting it to be like a Star Wars level or Lord of the Rings level thing is maybe a bit much.
Yeah.
I do think because Dune is so esoteric, and so much of it is about it's much more intellectual than those properties are. And I think just a lot of it is going to be difficult for some people to get their heads around. Now, if Villeneuve is a good enough filmmaker and he can convey these ideas in a way that's maybe easier to understand or more palatable, then maybe that's possible. But he's going to have his work cut out for him to do that.
Well, here...
Yeah, I was going to say, though, the films made nowadays, so they usually are dumbed down a little bit. And so, yeah, I don't think it'll probably go in high to the pop policy. I'm hoping it'll be like, but that's because I'm into my action. It'll be just like big worms, like sandworms, and loads of like things and that.
You know, and another thing, Star Wars was never at the time said that it was going to be a big thing. And Lord of the Rings, no one said that before the first Lord of the Rings movie came out that it was going to be the next Star Wars, or that it was going to be the next big thing.
It seems like whenever people predict something to be the next Star Wars, it doesn't really live up to that. I remember back in the mid '80s when that Masters of the Universe movie came out.
Oh,
there was, there was an ad for it, and it had like some critic that put like the new Star Wars or something like that. And, not
but
so
here's,
much.
but here the classics. Here's the thing. Our society has gotten much more, I want to say, sophisticated in some aspects about how we digest media. And I think there are going to be people out there, it might be more than any of us in here realize, that gravitate to something that is more intellectual, that makes you think, that makes you really do a deep dive on some of the ideas that are put forth in this first movie and hopefully in the later movies. Because I am very much a person who is a supporter, is a proponent for this idea that society and humanity is constantly evolving, in a manner of speaking. And this is very much an idea that Herbert put into the Dune books. that society, that humanity in particular, is evolving, is growing beyond what it currently, how it thinks, how it perceives itself, how it understands the world it exists in. And Dune is one of those properties that speaks very profoundly to that. Now, are there going to be people that are just going to go for this whole sci-fi angle of this movie? Of course they are. But I think there are going to be others, and it might be more than, like I said, that realize what I was trying to say. There are going to be a lot more that any of us realize. They're going to this to see something that is going to make them think. That's going to make them do a deep dive into some aspect of how society and how humanity understands itself. Because let's face it, ever since 2015 and maybe even 2016 and maybe even before that, our society has become somewhat stagnant, in a manner of speaking. And I think this movie coming out when it is might cause a lot of people to really consider their place in the world and how they perceive themselves, in a manner of speaking. I may be going a little bit philosophical and a little bit metaphysical here, but one of the things about the human condition is this idea that we are always striving forward. And Dune, in a lot of ways, speaks to that idea.
Well, I think you're right about that as far as what the book is about and kind of the themes and everything. But I hope you're right, but I kind of feel just the opposite. I think instead of getting more sophisticated, we're more going in the other direction, where it's very much not so much about grand ideas or about intellectual discipline. It's just about feels. It's about your feels.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I completely agree. I hope you were right, Ambassador. But we intellectually, our technology has increased and our technology keeps growing and getting better. But I honestly think as human beings, we're kind of reverting.
Well, and here's the interesting thing about.
Right, I hope I do. I do.
Well, and here's the thing. And if Villeneuve addresses this in the movies, if he does some sort of prologue like they did with the original, where they talk about how technologically advanced humanity had become and how it had stagnated humanity and how humanity had just been kind of limping along after the machine wars, or the war with let's just put it that way, the machine wars and everything in the Dune prequel books that Brian Herbert has done. People who read those books are going to make that connection, and those books were honestly incredibly popular. At least I think they were, and everything. They seem to.
Well, they're extremely popular among, I think, hardcore sci-fi fans, but Dune's never been like a Main Street, quote unquote normie hit.
No.
Yeah, and classic. I wholeheartedly agree with you. That's why the original didn't do as well as it did. Although, I guess I'm a little more pragmatic and maybe a little more optimistic than most.
I think that Villeneuve is. I think he's a good enough filmmaker that he's possibly capable of pulling that off. But I'm skeptical.
No, and skepticism is normal. It's a given, and we're just gonna have to wait and see what comes out in November. Because if I'm wrong, and unless I'm incorrect or anything, the first movie's coming out in November of this year.
Yeah, you're right.
I think it's actually in December. I think it's like right before Christmas.
They changed.
Oh, is it December?
They changed.
I think so.
I think they changed it from November 20th to December 18th.
Okay. Well, and hey, that's fine. I don't care. November, December, either or. I'll go see it either way. And we may come back to this and everything after it comes out because this would be something there. This would be a good thing to. This would be a good thing to discuss. So,
Yeah.
but I think honestly we have. If y'all disagree, I think we've covered this topic as thoroughly as we can. We're just a little over 2 hours here. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up and everything. If y'all are good with that.
That's fine. I have to go here in a minute anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, if y'all want to do your final comments, plug your channels or whatever, and then we will close this out.
All I have to say is burn it down. Burn it all down.
Don't burn your channel, Loki. I actually enjoy it. It gets me through my workday, so please don't.
I'm not going to burn it all down.
Okay.
But it's fun, and it's fun to talk about, and it's fun to rail against. But this, dude, seriously, I want to thank you for this because this is just as fun. I love talking about positive things just as much as I love talking crap about shitty Star Trek episodes and what they did to Star Wars and Birds of Prey and all this other crap. So thank you for the invite, and I hope I can come back again next week.
Like I said, I'll send a link out and everything. Like I said, it's going to be Thursday.
Okay.
And I think because, like I said, Valentine's Day weekend, I want to spend with my wifey, my wife, who, as some people say. Jen's classic. Any final comments before we close around?
All right. I'm Classic Comics, and my channel, I review comics, also review genre movies, genre TV shows. I actually just posted my review of the second episode of Picard on my channel earlier, so feel free to go over to my channel and check that out. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a channel that I need to start posting more. The last one I did was about Brexit, which was about a week or two ago. But I'm going to have to do one about Birds of Prey, in my opinions, because it looks like it's flopping a bit, doesn't it? And so I'm going to have to do one on like why I think it's flopping. Yeah.
And as for myself, ladies and gentlemen, y'all know pretty much what I cover. I do videos on pop culture of the 80s and 90s. I will be continuing. I'm actually going to be redacting something and everything. I'm going to be continuing my Babylon 5 series. We're going to go ahead and move into the series proper and the TV movies and everything in the near future, probably within the next week or so. Just depends on scheduling.
Is that going to be like a viewing or review, or are you going to do a chat on it?
I'll be doing reviews. It'll be episode by episode, movie by movie.
Okay.
And I might everything if I have enough people that are as familiar with Babylon 5 as I am, I might do a stream here or there and everything. It just depends on how many people I am in contact with that know the show, because I know the show and everything. I know what Dega does and everything because he and I have had conversations about it as well.
Well, I'd love to be a part of that if you're doing it.
Yes. We might do. I haven't got that all fleshed out as of yet. But I will classic. I'll keep you in the loop. Count on it.
Okay.
As always, you can follow me for anything on Twitter at Rogue5778. And you can obviously I try to upload at least a couple of videos every week. I am, like I mentioned before, I'm back in school. I'm working on my master's, yada yada yada. So to everybody in the chat, to all of my panelists, Stone Loki, Adega, Jens, Classic Comics, to everybody in the chat, to my mods, Kathia Star, Shea Storm Dragon, thank you all for being here. And be on the lookout for our Evil Dead stream this coming Thursday. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Ambassador and his friends signing off.
Later.
Good night.
Bye.